The thoughts, views, and comments expressed by Sidebar, its guests, callers, and advisors are not necessarily those of the management, ownership, or production unit of ILS Verizon Media Group. Sidebar, a 103.5 The Beat podcast, is a production of ILTV Studios and may not be reproduced or represented, in part or in its entirety, without the express written consent of Verizon Media Group. Sidebar is the intellectual property of Verizon Media Group. Copyright 2024. All rights reserved.
Welcome to Sidebar, 103 The Beat podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. Thanks for joining us today. I don't think I ever say that, I don't want you to think I take you for granted. I'm a little under the weather, so if you hear me snuffleupagussing, if you hear me sniffling and doing a lot of mouth breathing, it is mostly because I'm congested, and it's not, I promise, that I've forgotten how to breathe through my nose. Today, I would like to speak with you on the topic of, it's February, all right? And let's be honest, Valentine's Day is around the corner. But of course, by the time I see you again, Valentine's Day will be done. So I guess this is the Valentine's Day episode. And what better way to have a Valentine's Day episode to take you into the week of love than to do an episode about love? If I don't do it now, by the time I get around to it, some of you guys are going to be pregnant by then. So, let's deal with it now. And I do feel that love is one of those, I'll be real with you. I feel like love is a complicated topic. It's one of those things that we presume to know and to understand. But when somebody asks you, hey, what is love? Then we start to fumble about and try to figure out, is it this thing? Is it that thing? And I think the truth is that it is not the same thing to everyone. We have agreed that love exists. We agree that it is an emotion of some sort that human beings feel, but the parameters of which it falls under, that we have not agreed to. When I was in grade 11 or 12, 20 something years ago, in high school for the religious knowledge BGCSE exam, we had to write a paper about the various types of love. And there's eros and philios and agape and there's all these other types of love and stuff. But looking back on it, are there really that many types of love? Or because it would feel like, in that regard, love is just an intense emotion, all right? And if you don't feel an intensity, then, because filio, like a brotherly love, doesn't necessarily apply solely to people who are related. You could have a love of brotherhood for, and most often, people that you are not related to, all right? It is the brotherhood of man is supposed to be, or like you're in a club. If you are a Lakers fan and somebody else is a Lakers fan, then you guys share a brotherhood of sorts and a loyalty that comes with that. But you guys aren't necessarily related. And that, of course, may or may not be intense. And the same way, like, let's say you're a part of a fraternity, there is a loyalty, a love, of some sort where it's like, okay, this person is my brother or sister, if you're in a sorority, And so it is my obligation, is my duty. And in that regard, that type of love doesn't feel like an extreme emotion. It feels like something that you sat down and you thought it out. And you said, okay, in thinking this is what this love is, right? Then you have, oh, this agape God type love where it's like you love everyone. But that's similar, that's a similar type of love to the filial love. It's just without without parameters, all right? So that you don't need to necessarily have a reason or an organization or a set of rules for that love to kick in, but it usually applies to human beings. People don't say, I have an agape love for snakes and insects, like, because I mean, if we were to really say the love of God, that would be that full love. But what we really mean is the assumption that you care about sentient creatures that are primarily human beings. But with that said, it's still not like that intense emotional love, right? And so then we have eros love, which is it's just people being aroused, and that's just a chemical reaction, right? But I mean, if we say that's love, then that's love, and it's really those ones, right? That's actually the most emotional one. That's the one that's the most emotionally charged. And so now we have to ask ourselves the question, is love a situation of things that you feel? Or is it things that you know? Is it things that you have no control over, where it is a moment of temporary madness, as it is inside the movies, where I can't help it. I'm just so in love with this person. I have to be with this person. I'll run in the rain. I'll run in front of a train. I'll run through the airport, through the security guards. I gotta get to her. She has to know how much I love her. This moment of temporary insanity. Or is it making the right choices for a life with someone? And then making the right choices for the best for you and that person. Like, what is it exactly? Is this love? And I don't think that it is, once again, one straightforward thing. I was thinking about it today. The fact that I am one of those people who I don't actually believe in this idea of a magical love of like everybody has a soulmate sort of situation. I don't actually subscribe to that. But I think we've all, on some level, as human beings in the Western society, agreed that love is a magical thing. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that on some level, we're very aware what it is. And there are things that overlap. But if we call it something magical, then it frees us up from our personal responsibility in who we love or how we love or why we love. Because that's the other thing. There's this idea of why do we love? If you are a parent and someone says, why do you love your child? You say, oh, I just do. The minute you look into their eyes and you come up with some crazy poetry about how the minute, they're born, nothing else is more important in the world. And for some people, certainly that is a thing. There's a biological impulse. And scientists will tell you that the reason why babies are cute is so that we don't leave them in the wilderness to die. That's an evolutionary trait. But if someone to say, why do you love your child? It is a difficult thing to express. But at the same time, you know what isn't a difficult thing to express? Someone say, oh, why do you love your husband? Why do you love your wife? Why do you love your boyfriend or your girlfriend? Why do you love this person or this thing, and you say, oh, because they take care of me and they do this thing, as though they've earned your love. For a very long time, I thought that love was to be earned. And this is where things get tricky inside my head. And when I say I thought love was to be earned, this is as late as this year, January. Like, I had this conversation. It wasn't something that I thought, and then through years of therapy, I mined it out of my head and I figured it out, and now I'm untangling it and I'm confronting it. No, this is from when I was 15 or 16. I'd come to the conclusion that love was something that must be earned. And perhaps it was from my observation where people would say things and they'd show love to persons, whether it was my cousin, because, she's so smart and so talented. And like, okay, those are things. That's why she is loved. And that's why I feel she is loved. And I am not, or I'm not loved to the same level. Or whether it was television, where someone would win the affection of someone. So by a series of trials, they have gained this love. But then sometimes people just like people. And the reason that they love someone is because how that person makes them feel, whether it is simply enough that somebody loves you because you're attractive, and you being attractive makes them feel good, because seeing pretty things makes us feel good as human beings. And this pretty thing has chosen to be around me, and that makes me feel good. But that's not necessarily earning something. And then there are times where there aren't. So it's not that there are times when, but what of the things and the people that cannot do anything for you, that you don't find sexually attractive, that are not genetically related to you, that aren't cute enough for you to not leave them in the forest? What of them? How does love work in that regard? And of course, I know that's not what Valentine's Day is about. Valentine's Day is about the commodification of the erotic. It is about how do we assign in a Judeo-Christian society a dollar value to human sexuality. That is what Valentine's Day is about. But if we were to pretend that it was about the magic of love, how does it work when the person cannot earn your love and you have no need of them? That's it. If we were to talk about the magic of love, I think that would be the greater magic, where the love has nothing to do. The love it would be pure because there is no payment. There is no exchange. It is, you love solely for the purposes of loving. Now, I will tell you this, that I'm saying that, but at the same time, it's not true. There is a purpose in loving those who cannot love you back. All right? And it's difficult to talk about this without it becoming like I must derive it from somewhere. So I'm pulling from what Christ has taught us. And so if you only love the people who love you, everybody does that. That's self-preservation. That makes the most sense. Now, in fairness, if you need a reason to love people who don't love you, That is also self-preservation. And we'll get to how that is. But you have to, on some level, acknowledge that although we pretend as though it's pure, although we're really, it's like, I love you because you did this thing for me. But what if they couldn't? And how does that make that other person feel? That the minute that they are no longer of use, the love disappears. It makes sense that people would start to think that they have to store up a certain amount of love points in the form of guilt, in the form of saying, well, I did this for you. I remember when I did this. And at funerals, we say, oh, this person did this for me. They did that for me. But what of the people who just existed? They weren't in a position to do anything. Or whether they weren't in a position to do anything because they weren't financially able, because that is often the example that is given the most as proof of love. This person, when I was down on my luck, they gave me $5. They always had to help. They always was willing to buy you lunch. They did this, and they put gas in your car, and they made sure a roof was over your head. These are like the basic things, but what if the person was not financially able to do that? Were they not? Now, I'm not even going to ask if they were capable of love. Were they not worthy then of your love? Okay, so what if the person was just there emotionally? What if they supported you in everything? But what if they couldn't do that? What if they themselves were thrust into a world where they were not given love at an affordable age, and they did not know how in the grand scheme of things to do that because they had never healed enough to express themselves in any way that would make you feel like they were worthy of that? Would that mean that they were then not worthy of love? And worse, if they were not attractive. I think that is the worst thing of all. That is the greatest sin. You know that, as a sidebar, if you are attractive, and this applies to everyone across the board, the moment you have a physical, corporeal form, like the minute you have a form, this applies to you. We know that the more attractive you are, and attractive is a relative word, but the more like pretty children, cute children, attractive children, children who are not ugly, who are not deformed, the better looking you are, the more symmetrical your face is, the less weird you look, the more people assume that you are intelligent. Those kids get more blighs in school, whether that's primary school or high school or even in college, than the other kids. Because it's human nature. This idea of, well, if somebody is attractive, that means they're healthy, and so the healthy people are more important than the sickly ones. But we should have evolved past that at this point. However, being attractive is a very big deal in the 21st century still. So what if the person wasn't even attractive? Do they deserve love? And let's just say, no, they don't deserve love. They don't deserve love because they were broke, they was ugly, and they came from such a traumatic background that they themselves were not able to be a friend to anyone. So just say, no, they're not worthy of love. But where does that put them in society? How does one like that contribute to society? How do they see themselves as a part of society? This is how you end up with antisocial behavior. And antisocial behavior sounds like just a random term that people throw about, but that's kids breaking glasses, like the window is inside a house that is empty. That's people throwing garbage out of their window. That's people walking inside the room and not saying good morning. That's people when they go to the public bathroom, whether that's at the mall, whether that's at the movie theater, wherever it is, at school, and they are not even trying to get anything inside the toilet. And I'm not talking about urine. They're just like, wherever it is, it's not my concern because that's the only place that they can demonstrate power. All these forms of antisocial behavior are coming from persons who do not have, at least not enough of it, this magic of love. Some of them are just raised incorrectly, but that's a different topic for a different day. If all that's happening, how are we going to have a society that works? Who is not worthy of love within society? And then what do we do with them if they're unworthy of love? I'm saying all that to say that I think that for the good of society, and specifically the Bahamian society, we mustn't think that anyone is unworthy of being loved. We must come to some sort of conclusion or some sort of idea that everyone not just should be loved, but must be loved. And even if that love is same thing, the philios, the philia, the brotherly love, where it is a sense of almost loyalty and obligation to the person, as opposed to this intense. Matter of fact, it should be, I wouldn't say an academic exercise, but definitely a mental exercise where one says, this person I'm going to love. But let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into that. This is Sidebar 103 to Be podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sidebar 103 to Be podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. Today we're talking about love. And yeah, sunshine, roses, whatever, alcohol, cool. Right. So I want to talk about loving people who society would say we shouldn't love. All right. The least of these. And that could be anything. Whomever you consider to be the least of these, and these being us, of human beings. All right. My argument is that we have to love that person. That is, without loving that person, the whole entire society is going to fail. Once we build a hierarchy where it is okay to not love somebody, to treat someone with disdain, or even just to ignore them, to not acknowledge their existence, to not validate them, to not build them up, to not give them a space within society. If we make a society where that is possible, it is only inevitable that at some point that is going to cause the collapse of society. Because if your society requires there to be subjugation, like somebody at the bottom who is oppressed and repressed and broken for your society to function, not only one day might it be you, but that's not a very stable foundation. That is a society that's going to have a constant churn. It's going to be constant upheaval. Everyone's going to be fighting to make sure that they are not at the bottom. They're going to constantly say, well, I'm closer to whoever's at the top. And so therefore I should be considered closer to the top. And whoever's at the bottom, these other people who are my rivals for the race to the top should be put at the bottom. They should be at the bottom of things. And I'm going to say something that is either vile or controversial. So if people are not lovable, if we cannot as a society love the worst person, then why are they here? What purpose do they serve other than to feed us on some psychic level the idea that we are better than them? You know what I mean? Like, take prison, for example. There are people who will always describe the Bahamas Department of Corrections, BDOCS, formerly Foxhill Prison. They will always describe it as this hellhole, and this is what happens to bad people. But there are people within Foxhill or within BDOCS who are there awaiting trial. They've not been found guilty yet. And some of them will be found innocent. And they are solely in prison because of being in the wrong place, mistaken identity, poverty. Because honestly, if you're rich enough, you'll have a lawyer so that that can expedite these things and won't have you just sitting around spending a year on remand waiting for your case to come up, then to be released. Are those people, like, the disgust and the disdain and the torture and the punishment that we think Foxhill Prison is, are those persons deserving of it? No, they're not. But even the worst people who we know have done horrible things, and you can pick your worst crime that the person may have committed. And we know, let's say there's a hypothetical person that we know that they've committed this crime and they are the worst person, they are the worst offender, they've done this thing. Okay. What are we keeping them around for? And I understand, I do not believe in capital punishment. To me it is, I don't understand. I mean, it's too much of a final choice, but it is a crime for me to take a dog and put a dog in a closet and lock the closet for 8 months and just slide food underneath the bottom of the closet to the dog and slide water underneath the closet door for the dog. If I did that to a dog and only let the dog out once a week for 1 hour or once a day for 1 hour so the dog could get some sunshine, take a poop outside, but there's a bucket in there for the dog. If I were to do that and somebody found out, I would be arrested for animal cruelty. The animal would be taken away and I would go to jail where I would be locked in what is the equivalent of a closet for 8 months to 2 years, where food would be served to me through bars, and I might get an hour of recreational time a day or maybe a week, depending on how good or how bad I am. And I'd be stuck in there with maybe 7 other guys in a cell made for 2 people. So for keeping a dog in a closet, I would then be put in the closet. So I'd be put in the circumstances that we have deemed inhumane for a non-human animal. And the dog would have been put down because they would say, well, this dog is so far gone and this is the best thing that we can do for the dog. So what are we doing with the people? Some of these people are going to come back out in society, and some of them won't. Some of them will die there. But what is the point? And it's because we have created a caste, a set of people that we don't have to love. We can all feel better knowing that these unlovable miscreants and creatures, we're better than them. But we're not. We're not. The justice system in the Bahamas is one as such that if enough people say, oh, well, I saw him walking close by there that night, and the police arrest you, and you don't have the means to prove your innocence, you will spend time in custody. And you can hope that the truth might prevail. You can hope that you get before a good judge that says, well, there's no real proof. What is the evidence here? This is a weak case. You hope that a jury finds you innocent, but but we are okay with this group of unlovable people existing because it makes us feel better. But that means that, and here's the problem with that, all right? When we feel that we're better than those people, when bad things happen to someone, our first thought is, this is happening to them because of something they did or didn't do, and we are superior to them. We don't give them, as the church would say, as the kids say, the grace, the understanding to say how they arrive in the position that they are in. Our lack of love for those persons who cannot, even if they wanted to, they couldn't love us back from behind the walls. They couldn't love us back with their money or with their time, or they don't have the capability. Literally, they can't love us back. But we're okay with not loving them because it makes us feel better than them. That doesn't work. Because that means that we are never going to fix the problem. Because prison isn't a solution. It never has been. It's just, so once, many years ago, when I was in college, an environmentalist came and said, part of the issue, the reason why the world is in the state that it is in terms of whether it's trash or pollution or littering, is that during the 1900s and before that as well, everybody would say, you just throw away your trash. And they kept saying, you throw away your trash, you throw away your trash. But no one said where away was. Away is somewhere. There are countries in the world that have a massive issue with plastics, and they don't produce plastic. It just floats there because that's how the tides work. You're throwing things away, but eventually it has to go somewhere. And when you push all the people that you have chosen not to love into the prison system, or something else, because there's more than just the prison system. But when you push all the people that you've chosen not to love away, you've thrown them away. Where is away? And what happens to the families of those persons? What happens to those persons? Like, we still have to support them because, the Bahamas technically, according to Amnesty International, we're an abolitionist state. We've not publicly executed anybody since the turn of the century, right? I think since 2000. I think maybe 2000 was the last time. I could be wrong. It might be 1999. But we've not done it. And we're not going to do it. And this isn't me calling for us to do it, but I'm saying these are human beings. What is, and it doesn't just stay there. If it was possible for us to not love a group of people and just keep it just to that group of people, then you can make the argument that it'd be fine. It wouldn't. It'd still be wrong. But you could try to make that argument. The problem is, like I said before, once you start building a hierarchy and you say, this person is at the top, I'm somewhere in the mid-range, and the people beneath me are beneath me because of their own failing, and I don't have to love them. I don't have to have an obligation or a sense of duty towards them. I don't have to have the urge within me to help or assist them, to help them become better, or to change them, or to even give them the tools for them to enact that for themselves. You're going to do that to everyone beneath you. And maybe at different levels, but you will do it. Right? If the person at the very bottom is so far beneath you that you don't care about them in any way, shape, or form, what's going to stop you from doing that to your kids? Because some of you guys look at your kids and say, this ugly child, right? Because the child takes after you. And the child cannot bring in any money to you. The child, I pray to God, you're not looking at the child in a romantic sense. The child is just a child. They do nothing for the contribution. What can they do to earn your love? Worse if the child is not intelligent in the way that you desire them to be intelligent. Because for some people, that means, oh, my child don't read and write or whatever. But there's other people, they don't actually care because that's not something that they value. Even if the child could read and write and was secretly, like Goodwill Hunting, a mathematical genius, they don't actually care about that. They're like, oh, well, you don't do this other thing. And there's a lot of parents out there who are like, oh, you don't wash the dishes and this, because they themselves are still looking for someone to take care of them, someone to parent them, even in their old age. But I digress. The child has nothing to offer you. What's going to stop you from treating that child the same way that we treat prisoners? Whereas, when you're not around, I do not think about you. When I do see you, there's a level of resentment because I'm forced to take care of you. The same way society has a level of resentment towards prisoners and poor people and foreigners. Like, where we're like, oh, you guys are just a burden. As opposed to, you are a part of society and I'm compelled by love to make sure that the best is possible for you. I have an obligation to you, that you are my brother regardless. If you're not doing it for people who can articulate a sentence, what are you going to do to your kids? What are you going to do when you own a business and you're like, hey, these are my employees. They're not people. It's inevitable that happens, right? Once you have that baked inside your head. And so you shouldn't, first of all, well, not first of all, you shouldn't be thinking about life and human beings going up and down. You should be thinking going from, let's say, east to west, because left and right are taken. So east to west or north to south. Well, no, east to west, because that's more lateral for a lot of people, right? But if you're not doing that, you're destroying society. You're putting society at risk. Because it's going to seep through the layers. Anyway, let's take another break. When we come back, we're going to wrap it up. You are watching and listening to Sidebar 103 to B podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. We'll be right back.
Okay, guys, this is what we doing today. We training for the bounce back. This 150K payday. Y'all ready? Yes. Y'all sweating today. Give me a 2 ball. 10. Give me another 2 ball. 15. You spin, right? It don't look so. It's 10K. Name these games after me. Fruit Dragon.
Fruit Dragon.
Cinema Classic.
Cinema Classic.
Yeah. Put that parlay in. Put that in. You know, Jalen Bronson disappointed us last time. You want to walk for this or you want to run for this? Good pace. Good pace. Not too much water. Hit it down. Let's go.
It's the Bounce Back 150K payday. Big wins for 10 weeks straight. 15K every week. 10K to a lucky winner. Visit islandluck.com for more info. Island Luck. Winners live here.
Welcome to Paradise Premium Foods, where exceptional taste meets everyday convenience. Right in the heart of Hurricane Hole Plaza, whether you're planning a beachside brunch, an intimate dinner, or simply restocking your favorites, we offer only the finest selection of local and imported goods, handpicked for quality, freshness, and flavor. At Paradise Premium Foods, shopping is effortless, service is personal, and every visit feels like a treat. From gourmet meals to go to organic essentials and indulgent treats, this is your neighborhood market elevated. Live well, eat better. Discover Paradise Premium Foods, now open at Hurricane Hole Plaza, Paradise Island. Paradise Premium Foods. Taste the difference.
Welcome back to Sidebar 103 to Beat podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. Today we're talking about love. Because, you know, Valentine's Day or whatever. Hopefully, you know, you have a good one or whatever. Anyway, I want to talk about the people at the bottom of the ladder. Why do we even have a ladder? Where are you guys going? But anyway, I digress. There's a thought inside my head right now. A lot of people are like, we should get rid of mosquitoes. And they like, what purpose do mosquitoes serve? And they think mosquitoes are disgusting and annoying, and they spread malaria and diseases. And if you've been to any family island, especially when it's just rain and it is not I'm going to say Hawaii, a regatta or a homecoming, there are some family islands that when night falls, you need to get inside. Off does not stop them. In Nagua, bro, the last time I went to Nagua, when I say the minute the door of the plane opened, we were greeted with mosquitoes. They were mosquitoes got caught in the hair on my arm. And I was killing them nonstop. And it didn't help. And I remember many years ago, I was staying in Anagua, and me and my girlfriend at the time, we went for a walk. Oh, we want to go see the lighthouse or whatever. And it wasn't even dark. It was the moment that the sun stopped being out. So like if the sun sets at 7, it was like 5:30. That's all the mosquitoes needed. When I say we hit a wall of mosquitoes, like, and it was crunchy and like just running through the mosquitoes, how many of them were. So understandably, people don't like mosquitoes. They're like, what is the point of mosquitoes? And you hear scientists all the time saying, oh, we figured out, what if we get infertile mosquitoes to mate with fertile mosquitoes, and we change something in their DNA so that they reproduce one generation, but essentially they'd be like a mule. So like a horse and a donkey will have a mule, but the mule cannot reproduce. As a side note, as a sidebar, that is the reason why the term mulatto is offensive, because mulatto literally means mule. I think it's in Portuguese. It could be inside. Yeah, I think it's Portuguese. Anyway, basically we'll make the mosquitoes, we'll wipe them out because they'll be infertile or impotent, whichever of the ends you want. But the thought I've had in my head was, that seems like an extreme decision to make. And like, based on what? What right have we to wipe an entire species out because we are sometimes annoyed by it? You know that mosquitoes don't, like, all mosquitoes don't drink human blood. Matter of fact, we know that only the female mosquito sucks blood. The male mosquito doesn't do that. So that's already half of the species that don't have anything to do with that. But also, mosquitoes don't need blood to live. Mosquitoes actually live off of the same things that a lot of other insects do, which is nectar. They help to pollinate things. Like, they serve a purpose within the grand design and in the great structure of things. The reason why mosquitoes suck blood is because at some point in human history, we encroached on where they were. And the theory is that through agriculture, we messed up the land in a way, we terraformed the land. And, the land gets mucky, and so it rains, and there are these puddles and stuff, and so the mosquitoes breed, and blood is protein rich, and the things that they would ordinarily use for their food source, we were messing with it. And we encroached on them, but we don't love them. And we don't see the purpose that they serve for us. Therefore, they have no value to us, and we want to get rid of them. But what if we wiped out the mosquitoes and that caused some calamitous chain reaction? Because the male mosquito doesn't drink blood. They're going around helping pollination. So what if, like, some of the food that you eat is suddenly harder to buy because we don't have enough mosquitoes populating the fields in a way that would be helpful to agriculture? Like, this unforeseen consequence of our short-sighted action because we did not love something that we felt hadn't earned our love. But that's just mosquitoes. That's just mosquitoes. Anyway, what do I know? I live in Nassau. Like, at some point during the rainy season, a truck will come by, gas the mosquitoes, gas the bees, gas the moths, because you got to protect the people and things that you actually love. Anyway, I hope you have a great Valentine's Day. This has been Sidebar, 103 The Beat podcast, powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. True God still.
So you want a space. But not just any space. You need something with a little more potential. So how about 1,000 square feet of room to play with? Superb audio and video production capability, digital LED wall, full lighting grid, and about 124 seats to accommodate a full studio audience, with so many other features. Make us your home for your next concert, conference, and so much more. Honestly, the possibilities are endless. Here at ILTV Studios, we'd love to bring your next event to life. So what do you say? Do you want our space?